you're calling me to lay aside the worries of my day. Quiet down my busy mind and find a hiding place. Worthy, you are worthy.
Rally Day is September 8th. Everyone is welcome to come if you want to bring a dish to pass. There will be hot dogs and brats provided. There'll be games and just a great time to kind of kick off the year because Sunday School and Wednesday Night Connect will be starting in the fall. So, we are in need of a little help.
Excuse me?
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry for interrupting. I'm just a little late because it took me a little longer to curl my hair this morning.
Come on in. I'm so glad you made it.
Oh, I am so happy to be here. Yeah. Oh, okay, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt, but can I just stand here?
Absolutely. I love that.
Okay.
So we're just talking about how we are going to be in need of a couple of volunteers starting in the fall. So first
Volunteers.
Oh,
sorry.
Oh, no.
Oh, I worked so hard with my hat too. So, okay. Yes.
Sunday morning at 9:15 is Sunday school, and we are looking for some Sunday school teachers.
Oh, I would love to help, but I'm afraid of working that hard and making those lessons and doing all that work.
Well, we will actually prepare everything for you. The lesson, the study will all be presented in a way that you will just have to review it and will be able to, just too excited. You don't have to worry about any of that prep work.
I don't have to worry about no prep work. It's all there.
It will all be there.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, there will
But I can't do it every Sunday.
Well, in order to make that a little useful, because I know it's hard to commit to weekends, that's a lot of time that you can travel and visit family. If we are looking for
and do my hair.
And do your hair. It's too much. It will be one Sunday a month, so there'll be 4 rotations. You only have to commit to one Sunday.
One Sunday? That's it?
That's it.
Oh my gosh! I think I can do that. Yeah.
And there are different. Each Sunday will be a different type of activity. There is fun with food, games, outside games, and crafts.
Oh.
With the Bible lesson.
Oh, that sounds so good. I just can't wait. But I have heard about something else, this Connect thing or Fusion or something.
Wednesday Night Connect.
Oh.
So that is on Wednesday evenings. What's really awesome about that is that there's something for everyone. There's normally an adult study, and then each age range of kids has a Bible study that goes on that night, as well as games. In the middle
Games
of
again.
In the middle of that, at about 5:30, there is a meal that we all have together.
Meal?
I love that so much.
I love food. Oh my goodness, I love food. Okay.
So there will, of course, need to be people who are able to prepare those meals.
But I can't. I've got things to do. I can't be here every Wednesday preparing food.
Well, it can be as simple as one Wednesday a month. It does not have to be a weekly
One Wednesday?
commitment.
That's it?
That's it.
Oh my goodness. But then I've got to set up, and then I've got to clean up.
Well, we would ideally have multiple people who are available on that same evening. We are looking for people to cook the food, to help serve, and then also to help clean up.
So I just have to do one little piece.
Yeah, you just have to show up, and if you want,
And then I can eat.
and then you can eat with everyone too, which is really nice. You get to have that fellowship as well. If you have something that you know you would want to cook, you can bring the ingredients. If you are if you don't want to do any of that planning, we pre-prepare a menu for you and provide all the ingredients.
It's so easy.
Just cooking.
It is just so easy.
Having fun in the kitchen.
Oh, but you know, it takes me time to think about this. I might need a day or so to decide what I want to do, or maybe a week or so, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Figure out.
Yeah.
We will have a clipboard going around. You can just put down your name in a way that I can contact you, and then we can talk. You can tell me what you are able to do, and I can let you know how that is helpful.
So you would just call me, and then we can set it up.
Absolutely.
So the clipboard
is already going around, I think.
Oh, good. Because I can't wait to get my name on there and then have you call me and we can chat.
Yes, it would be so good.
Yeah,
Thank you guys so much.
Oh.
And come to Rally Day. It's going to be very fun.
All right.
Nebuchadnezzar was filled with wrath, so much so that his face seemed to change. And he gave orders to heat the furnace 7 times more than it is usually heated, that is, to heat it up as hot as they possibly could. And he ordered some of his valiant warriors in his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and cast them into the furnace of blazing fire. So they were tied up still in their clothes, their trousers, their coats, their caps. They were cast into the midst of the furnace of blazing fire. Now, because of the urgency with which the king wanted this command fulfilled, the furnace was extremely hot. And the fire blasting out of the furnace, in fact, killed the men who carried Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego up there. Meanwhile, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego fell into the midst of the furnace of blazing fire, still tied up. And then Nebuchadnezzar the king stood up in astonishment, and he called out and said to the other high officials, "Did we not cast 3 people bound into the midst of the fire?" And they said, "Oh, yes, king, certainly, O king." And he said, "But look, I see 4 men, and they're untied, and they're walking around in the midst of the fire, and they're not harmed. And the appearance of that 4th one is like a son of the gods." Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the entrance of the furnace of blazing fire and shouted out and said, "Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, come out! You servants of the Most High God, come here!" And the 3 men came out of the midst of the fire. And all those who were there, the satraps, the prefects, the governors, the king's high officials, they gathered around and saw that these men, even though they had been in the fire, there was no mark of it on their bodies. Their hair wasn't even singed. Their clothing wasn't even damaged. And in fact, they didn't even smell of smoke. And Nebuchadnezzar responded and said, "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and delivered his servants who put their trust in him, even if that meant violating the king's command. They yielded up their bodies so as not to serve or worship any god except their own. Therefore, I make a decree that any people, nation, or tongue that speaks anything offensive against the God of these 3 shall be torn limb from limb, their houses reduced to rubbish, inasmuch as there is no other God who is able to deliver in this way." So ancient peoples, as long as there have been peoples, human beings have always had a sense that there were other forces at work. Now, in some cases, that became an easy, I don't understand the physics of it, so there was an angel, deity, God in charge. How does fire work? There's a god of fire who makes it happen. Even though there was a tendency to assign that sort of to any experience that couldn't be explained, on the other hand, people have always had a sense of spiritual realities around them and have always recognized this. And this probably is what gives rise to the polytheism of the ancient world, the many deities, because you have a sense that there are things around. Now, over time, as things shift from a polytheistic world, and you look at the religion of Israel, which then becomes henotheistic, there are lots of gods, but we only worship one, eventually works its way into monotheism. There aren't lots of gods, there's only the one God. What starts to happen with all those other entities begins to change. They shift in position. They start out as other gods, then they become part of the court of God. They become God's entourage. God has an entourage in some of the ancient worldviews. And eventually they become what we think of as angels. Angels are referred to using the term Ben Elohim. And so it's this kind of thing that we're seeing here. Now, I mentioned this very specifically because a lot of times Christians will interpret that the 4th person in the fire is Jesus. I've heard people say that. Oh, where does Jesus show up in the Old Testament? Well, for example, he's in the fire with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. but that's clearly not the case. I know how they got there. By accident. It had to do with the way the the Hebrew got translated into Greek. In Hebrew translations into Greek, there are, it's called the Septuagint. There's more than one family tradition of these manuscripts because they're all copied by hand. And in one of the recensions, it says, and the king is looking, he says, do I not see one who has the appearance of God's son? Actually uses the exact same phrasing in Greek that you would find in the way Christians talk about Jesus, God's son. And then in a different recension, it says an angel of God. It actually says angel in a different translation. So without knowing, based on that, it would be easy to see how someone would go, oh, Jesus was in the fire. But if you keep reading, when Nebuchadnezzar himself, he has in the story, he has the job of explaining what's going on. So he starts out by saying, look, there's one with a divine appearance. And then he comes back and says, this is an angel of their God. God has sent his angel. And so he makes it clear who this person is. So the text itself tells us that this is an angel. And what we're seeing in the book of Daniel is a development of an understanding of angels, what's called angelology. The book of Daniel is the first book of the Bible where we actually have angels named. And their names, the two that are named in the book of Daniel are Michael and Gabriel. Gabriel shows up again in the New Testament, so we now have the name of a couple of angels. By the time of Jesus, this sense of angelology is becoming more and more complex. You're starting to get layers. The idea that there are 4 archangels has developed fully by the time of Jesus. We can see this in the book of Enoch, where the 4 archangels are clearly named: Gabriel, Michael, Uriel, and then the 4th one is, depending on the source, is either Raphael or Phanuel. And then later traditions will expand that number to 7. So you'll have 7 angels. And then there's even a later tradition where you get another angel whose name comes to us in English as Metatron. That's in a Kabbalistic tradition. That's like the chief angel or something. And so you have this development of these complex angelologies. And so, I can turn on the TV and find or look in the backlogs and find the churches doing their Angels Among Us series of sermons where they've got these really complex angel things and all the different versions, seraphim and cherubim and the this kind and the that kind and the Nephilim down here, and they're like doing all this stuff. But the problem with that is something we see Paul talking about in Colossians. If you're reading Colossians, he's trying to get at the point that Jesus is in fact the full and complete revelation of God in human form. And he's clearly speaking against someone else who's got their whole fanciful diagram. Apparently they've got a big diagram of how it goes, how the heavens are. And he says, don't let anyone judge you or confuse you or lead you astray with philosophy or with things having to do with the elemental principles of the earth, or with visions they have seen, or with the worship of angels. So it's clearly what's happening is, you see, it's so speculative that it becomes really easy for people to go, I have the secret knowledge about the angels, come and learn from me. And then you get these really complex systems start to develop. So I'm not going to do that. I'm not even going to ask the question, do angels exist? I'm just going to ask the question, what is the meaning of this? If you look at the sort of general outline of what we're talking about, the idea is that you've got God in heaven, that that there is another layer of created being, that would be the heavenly beings, the angels we would call them. There's another layer below that, which would be the human beings, described in Psalms as made a little lower than the angels. And then below the human beings would be the rest of the created world in which we live. And so you have this kind of hierarchy. And in that system, what we see is that God has a tendency to work indirectly or from behind a veil. So when God speaks to Moses face to face, God does not speak to Moses face to face. God has a burning bush between them. Or Moses is hiding in a rock because no one can see the face of God and live. And so there's always this sort of something between us and God, this indirection. A lot of times it's just a miracle of nature or something like that God does in order to be at work. And sometimes it's God sends an angel to take care of this. God has a person, a heavenly being tasked with the job of doing something. Now think about this. God says to an angel, see that Jewish priest there? I want you to go talk to him and let him know that his son is going to be a prophet. Can you imagine an angel going, isn't that a little beneath me? I'm an angel. I'm a heavenly angel. I was, before there was an earth, I was created. I was in your presence. I glorify. I can see you face to face, and I'm supposed to go talk to this guy? What? Don't you have some other, more appropriate minion to send on this task? It's beneath me. You could see an angel. You could imagine, from our human perspective, an angel saying something like this. But apparently, God and angels don't think that's beneath them. So much so that in the book of Psalms, in Psalm 91, we read this wonderful passage of Scripture. It says, and God will give angels charge over you to bear you up in their hands, lest you strike your foot against the stone. That's where we get the idea of the guardian angel, that there are literally heavenly beings assigned to watch over and help take care of us and protect us. And that apparently is not beneath them. Even though literally we're beneath them, right? God, angels, humans, the rest of creation. So if that's the case, first implication, God tends to work from behind the veil. Second implication, it is apparently not beneath the dignity of an angel to take care of a human being, which suggests that it is not beneath the dignity of a human being to take care of the creation which is below us. That's a valuable thing to think about the next time you're complaining about having to sort your recyclables from your trash. Just saying. Right? Because it actually says in the Scriptures that when God created human beings, God gave us responsibility for creation. So apparently angels have responsibility for us, and we have responsibility for creation, and that is not beneath us, but that is in fact the dignified work to which we are tasked. But there's one other thing too, because if God considers you and me, God, listen, if God is assigning angels, heavenly beings, to watch over you, that means you're really special. You matter to God. And if that's the case, then it's appropriate for you to matter to the people around you as well. It's appropriate for us then to, we sometimes see people who we think are beneath our dignity for whatever reason. They're beneath us, because maybe they have a history of incarceration, or maybe they're struggling with addiction, or maybe they're poor, or maybe they're homeless, or maybe they, suffer from mental illness, or maybe they just dress funny. And we look at them and we think that they're beneath us. They're beneath our dignity. Clearly not. Not in God's economy. Because the care of those who are quote unquote beneath us is precisely the work to which angels are assigned and we are assigned, which means we have that opportunity, as the Scripture says, to be angels unaware, to be God's angels in this world, caring not only for the creation that God has made for us to take care of, but for each other as well, for other people, to guard and watch over them and to protect them. On some levels, I loved when people ask me, do you believe in aliens? Like alien flying saucers, UFOs. My response is, you mean like extraterrestrials? And they're like, yeah. I say, of course they do. And they look at me like, what? How can you do that? I'm like, angels, by definition, extraterrestrial, right? Huh? Yeah. But I will say this, even if there are no angels, it doesn't matter. The point is still the same. Care of one another, care of the creation, care of any who are at our mercy is not beneath us. It is, in fact, the dignity for which we were created. Can you find the prayer response? And let's pray that together. Can it be true that within creation itself there are forces, entities, spirits charged with my care? Can it be true that there are those unseen and unrecognized sent from heaven to guard and protect me? What a thought that I should be held in such esteem and such importance as to be a fitting assignment for angels. But if you, O Lord, consider the guardianship of my lowly human self to be a proper charge for a heavenly being, then how much more should the care of others become my charge? So let me be one of your angels, guarding and nurturing souls for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank